Hello, everyone, and good morning. It's just about the top of the hour here. So, we're going to go ahead and get started. My name is Joanne, and I'm one of the community admins in the maintenance community by Upkeep. Thank you all for joining us today. And again, if you're not already a member of the maintenance community Slack group, we'd love to have you join us, and I'll add the link in the chat in a moment here. Today we have A.W. Schultz joining us for a presentation on how to prepare for the CMRP exam. I'll let A.W. introduce himself in a moment. The recording of today's session will be available in our Slack group tomorrow, along with a copy of the slides that you see here today. AW is also available in the Slack to answer questions live, so feel free to share this recording with anyone that you deem will benefit from this webinar. The final piece of housekeeping before we get started, you'll notice your cameras and microphones are not turned on. So what you'll want to do if you want to ask or answer any questions for AW, you'll use the chat feature on the right side of your screen here. And also for today's webinar, we'll also be releasing a few CMRP questions in the poll section. So be sure to check that out in that section so you can submit your answers, and we'll go over them as the webinar progresses. So that's all for me. Thank you again to AW for being here and everyone else for joining us today. AW, I'll turn it over to you to get us started.
Okay, well, thanks, Joan. Yeah, it's great to be here today. My name is A.W. Schultz. I'm the principal consultant at VMG. We do a lot of work with CMRP exam preparation and training, amongst other different things in the maintenance and reliability organization. So I'm glad to be here today, and thank you for joining this webinar. Feel free to welcome yourself in the chat. And I'm going to be discussing some of the CMRP exam preparations, both from a strategic and a tactical level on it. So I hope you find this useful, and we'll get started. So what we're going to be learning today is about the CMRP. And over the next hour, we're going to look at some of the benefits to it. The question is, why become a CMRP? How we actually learn in a perspective of in the preparations to taking the exam. Some tips on how you memorize for the CMRP. Different facts that I've found and analyzed over what we can see from the different material that's available to look at. We're going to look at how we can debunk a CMRP question. And this isn't just CMRP, this could be applied in other certification and other kind of exam prep scenarios. And then I've got a video we can watch on the 5 pillars within the CMRP communities and how you can prepare, and what are the tools and techniques and processes within the CMRP is what can help you be successful in the exam prep. Joan mentioned we've also got a couple questions that I've put together, and we're going to analyze those in a manner to see how we can further analyze and understand how a CMRP question is put together, and then understand how to build a strategy to pass or take your CMRP exam. So full disclosure on this. When you go and take your CMRP, you will sign a non-disclosure agreement. And this agreement is saying that you are not going to reproduce or copy any of the questions or informations that are out there. So what you'll be seeing today is simulated or test-like questions that I've produced. Part of what I also do is I build simulations and test questions, and I make them available for others that they want to learn more about test taking strategies and scenarios. That's pretty much the point of what you'll see, is that this information will not be discussing the test questions or things that involve within the test area, but it will talk about the information that's been put out there that you can easily take and grab and help yourself in the preparations for. So just to get things started, I'm going to tell you a little about my story and how it relates to the discussion today. So back in June 2020, my position was affected by COVID. I was a consultant in asset management, and the business had dried up for the time being. So which means I had to go and put myself on the market, started job hunting and look what else out there. And while I had a lot of experience in the industries, my certification skills were not up to date. And, a lot of it probably had to do with the fact that I had a sense of intimidation by taking standardized tests. I never thought I was very good at it. So, I didn't think I was a strong standardized test taker, but as so be it that I'm in a scenario, I became motivated. And, over the last year or so, I've taken multiple certifications on that, both in Six Sigma, project management, and then, most recently the CMRP. And in doing each of these, I found that I studied better in certain scenarios. And what I'm going to be going over today is not only both in the tactical, but the strategy, but how you can help yourself prepare for these different kinds of standardized testing. And in a lot of cases, I'm sharing what helped me. In a lot of cases, for the most part, I changed my learning style. So before you do that, what are the benefits of becoming certified? Well, I alluded to it earlier that I was put in a position where I needed to up my certifications to help myself open up doors that were immediately being closed, either by a recruiter asking from the HR manager saying that we needed somebody with this type of skill set, and the way you demonstrate that skill set is by having those certifications, right? So having that CMRP is a way of demonstrating that level of knowledge, both from the managers and the experience. It also helps validate your experience in a specific maintenance field. It helps unlock doors. And then, of course, you take pride in it. It's something that, you'll see a lot of people, they'll put that at the back of their names as they're CMRP certified. And it adds a level of confidence that, you immediately know when you meet somebody in the CMRP, you can usually, talk shop with them because they've demonstrated that knowledge in both the technical, but also in the field experience. So I don't remember where I got this, when I made this, but it's several years old. So I can't really give credit where it came from, but it was something I put together. And the takeaway on this pyramid, and it's called the parallelism between learning and reacting, is that just by reading, your level of knowledge only has a 10% retention. But as you include different ways of grasping information, discussion groups, and then ultimately when you can teach it, you've got that highest level of preparation or knowledge level in that specific topic. And then the bottom one, I left it in there, but it's just typically when you fall back to in a reaction mode, it's your previous knowledge. Sometimes it's just force, and then you might ask for help. And if you're anything like me, at that point, then I might actually read the manual. So that is how we learn. And then today, what I'm trying to do is just about above the reading and doing the audio and the visual. But we're gonna do some discussion questions and talk about each of these questions and how you can debunk some of this information as it flows within each of the questions. So it's called how to memorize, but it's really just how to test take. The first question is the preparation. It's pulling together all that information that when you take your CMRP that you want to have. When you register for the CMRP, there's information that if you become a member that you can pull off and watch their videos, and certainly there's other books and material that's out there that you can arm yourself with in preparation for it. The next thing is write everything down. I say this to the matter of that if everyone probably knows somebody, or maybe you are that individual that you're walking around with that notebook and you go to meetings and you're taking that things down, because that's how you've taught that you remember things better. And the next thing is, as you're writing the questions down, the different tools and processes, section those notes out. Just immerse yourself in the processes. If you were looking at my office right now, you'd see a couple boards up, and they're just full of sticky notes. And I've organized them in different ways in different projects that I'm working on. The next one is, I've tried this a couple times, but it is a tactics, and it's used by in competitions for memorization, but it's called the Palace technique. And the Palace technique is taking something that you want to remember. Maybe it's a name, maybe it's a process, and visualizing something that's regular to you. It might be a room in your house. It might be your house, and visually seeing that word above you, and it helps you to retain some of that knowledge if you want to memorize. A lot of people say they might have problems with names, where this might be a useful tool. Apply repetition of it. You just the constant redoing it, and I don't think that's anything that surprises anybody on that. Learn it like you have to teach it. Teach it to someone. Record yourself and listen to it. And then I always put on the back end of it before you take the exam, the night before. Take a break on it. Don't go as hard. Don't cram. Maximize your level of attention through good night's sleep, good meal, and then you'll be successful on it. So if you look at the CMRP exam, and this is out of the handbook that you can get on the SMRP website. It's about 27 pages, I believe. But the facts are about the exam: there is 110 multiple choice questions, A, B, C, and D. You're allowed 2.5 hours to complete, and you have a 10-minute break at the halfway point. Okay, so we're writing these things down because that's how we're going to go in, and that's what we can expect to have. They must be completed at a testing center. So they're not at home. They're not at your place of work. They're designated testing centers, so you'll be in front of a computer in your room, among other folks taking other exams. Also, there's no pen and paper that's allowed. So that's also a note to take away. So what can we predict from that exam, knowing this information? Well, they're called the pillars. So if something's called a pillar, it means they help balance the different structures. So we can conclude that there's probably an even balance of questions among the 5 pillars. Next, if you go into the handbook, they supply you with 15 CMRP questions. Now, as I go through and I look at those, so it's a little over about 10% of what the questions you'll see on the exam. For the most part, all the acronyms are called out. I found only one with that referred to as MTTR, mean time to repair. But other than that, all the acronyms are called out. So that just tells me that you don't necessarily have to take a lot of time in the memorization of all these acronyms, because they're going to make those available for you. No complex math equations. So they said there's no pen and paper. So which means also that you're not going to be expected to do long formats of equations on that. You're given a calculator that's on the computer, but if you're like me, I have to jog it down to if there's multiple steps on that. So I wouldn't expect large equations to be a part of the exam questions. If you have 110 questions, that essentially gives you 82 seconds per question. Now that's useful because I also looked at, if you look at the 15 practice questions that were supplied, an average reader can read that there is about 45 characters per question, and an average reading time is about 11 seconds. So the takeaway you can take on that is you have time to read each question multiple times if needed, and certainly come back to it if you want. So how do you debunk a question? Well, when you don't know. So we're going to make the assumption that we've done all the work in the back end of the study and understanding the processes, and there's going to be a scenario where we don't know the answer. Well, the first thing is, read it more than once and ask yourself, how would the CMRP want me to answer it? What is the takeaway? Now, many of you probably have got a lot of experience in the industry and have what you see as practice of it. But the question is, how is SRP wanted answered? There's 4 questions. Always try to remove the obviously wrong ones. Usually you can get down to 2. Look for strong language that you can remove. Words like must, will, absolute. There's that quote there. Rarely is anything 100% certain. The quote about death and taxes. And then in the exam, you can always mark it and you can review it at the end. That's what I'd recommend, especially if you're going through a lot of questions. You can come back and see maybe it's another question kind of regurgitated some of the information that you weren't able to solve at that point that you can use later. Okay, so that's the first scenario. Second step, worst case scenario, what could you do? Okay, obviously look between the 2 longest answers. And I say this because, as a test writer, often there's more emphasis added to thought on an example. Unfortunately, there could be that added thought to make it a distractor. So keep that in mind. But it's something to take in case if you're looking to eliminate some. Look at the ones that are longest as maybe a second chance to take a look at these questions. Correct answers often have verbs of the same tense and nouns or verbs that agree with each other. And then anyways, done testing in 4s, they always say go with your first choice. Now, one thing to remember is, and I don't know this on the CMRP, but I can tell you as some of the builds questions is that in computerized testing, you can pick to randomize your questions. So don't assume C will always be the best guess. I say that, however, as a test writer, I can say that often some of my questions usually do end up being C for whatever reason. But keep that in mind as you take your exam. Okay, now we're gonna get into the CMRP. As you know, there's 5 pillars within it. And what I'm gonna be showing is a video. I call it the 5 pillars in 5+ minutes. And it's gonna go over a quick look on the tools and practices that are out there. And if you're interested in getting the video, it's up on YouTube now. Also, you can reach out to me at the end and I can share it with you, okay? The body of knowledge of the 5 pillars. In the body of knowledge, the CMRP lists 5 pillars. They are called the pillars because it represents the different structures that hold up the maintenance and reliability organization. They need each other to support, and when they're connected, you have a good recipe for success. We're going to look at each of the pillars and look at the key takeaways. Remember, for the CMRP, they aren't asking you to be an engineer or a subject matter expert on all areas, but you do need to understand the theory behind it and how it can be used in the maintenance reliability organization. The first pillar is business and management. The pillar of business and management is taking business goals and translating them into maintenance and reliability. Understanding why the organizations have a business vision, mission, and strategy on how the maintenance and reliability support each other. Knowing what the maintenance and reliability key performance indicators are and determine between the leading and lagging indicators. What is change management and the difference between management and leadership? Manufacturing process reliability. The pillar of manufacturing process reliability understands current methods and practices, understanding analytical techniques to support manufacturing processes, such as total productive maintenance, Lean Six Sigma, and operational performance strategy. Equipment reliability. The pillar of equipment reliability is determining the equipment capabilities and processes used to select and apply appropriate maintenance practices to ensure safety and cost-effective delivery. Defining predictive and condition-based maintenance, application of PDN programs, best practices inspection, and preventive technology. Organization and leadership. The maintenance and reliability organization understands the capabilities of the personnel and the qualifications of those performing the work. Such examples would be having an organizational structure, skills assessment and job task analysis, performance analysis, and how you're training your staff. The final of the 5 pillars is work management, to know how maintenance and reliability work together from the planning, scheduling, quality, and storeroom inventory management. Such areas may include maintenance workflow, work order management, storeroom management. right, so that's the 5 pillars, and it's drinking water out of a fire hose. I realize that it goes very quick, but it's as far as the body of knowledge goes. I mean, there's a lot of different tools as far as continuous improvement, and then the maintenance, and then certainly the reliability on it that they pull from. What is interesting about what SMRP is looking for is that how can those tools and out there support the manufacturing, maintenance, reliability community. So as you prepare, those are the kind of questions you want to ask yourself. So the next portion, what we're going to be doing is some of the poll questions, and Joan's going to help me with this. But what we'll do is I've built around 5 questions, and what I'm looking for is just a quick answer, and I'm gonna go over in a test-like scenario as we answer these what we could do to further analyze some of these questions. All right. So question number 1, the scenario is a new plant manager has just started her position at a widget manufacturing plant. She wants to increase operator involvement on common repairs and maintenance. What program would best option to improve their current performance? It's like a game show, I guess. Is it A, implement an employee planning immediately? Is it B, perform an assessment on the current PDM program? C, launch autonomous maintenance program? Or D, start a Lean Six Sigma? So what I'll do is maybe give you all about 30 seconds, and then Joan, maybe you could help me.
Yeah, so I went ahead and launched it. To everyone, there's a few people just answering it in the chat here as well.
Okay.
But it looks like a few people are answering. It looks like it's all different. We have a few D's, a couple C's, B's. So it seems like we're not all on the same page here.
Okay. That's good. It kind of opens up a lot of discussion on this. All right, I'm gonna put a stop to it.
Yeah.
And then let's look at these. So new plant manager, and she wants to increase the involvement from the operators. So A is implement an employee planning immediately. And you know what? That might be a good answer. That could be a good answer as far as with any kind of project, you want to understand and analyze the information first. B is perform an assessment on the current PDM program. Well, it's not really answering the question that she's going out about looking for. C is the launch autonomous maintenance program. Well, that is actually what she's looking for. And the reason is there's some keywords out there is that specifically she wants to evolve a program to create autonomy. And then D is start Lean Six Sigma, which there's nothing wrong with starting Lean Six Sigma. But again, it wasn't the direct ask that the plant manager was going for. So in this case, it's C. Autonomous maintenance provides your operators with the tools, including digital, always up-to-date work procedures that they need to perform the maintenance tasks on their own equipment. Okay. How did we do on that, John? Or was the majority?
Majority was C, launch an autonomous maintenance program.
Okay, great. Okay, good. Okay, let's go on to question number 2. Question number 2 is, what is the best option to why a factory will conduct a failure mode effects analysis? A is to identify planning gaps. B is to use an onboarding project for new employees. C is to prevent the need for Six Sigma. Or D is to determine the likelihood of future failures. We'll start the clock. We'll go about 30 seconds.
All right, we're getting some answers right now. It looks like we have majority is answering D, to determine the likelihood of future failures. And we also have one person who answered to identify planning gaps.
All right, I'll call time on that. Was the majority still the D, Joe?
Yes, so we got 94% D. We got 6% A.
Okay. And you know what? I'll say this, that 94% is right. But I also see number A is saying that, you know what, you have got a good point. And the thing is about when you're taking the exam is to look at, there could be multiple right answers. But the asked question is, what do we think is the best answer and what CMRP would want as a tool to understand it? And in this particular case, it is D. B is just, I hope no one's on organizations that they develop FME programs just to keep new employees busy. And then C is it's not meant as a tool to remove Six Sigma. But yes, D is the answer. And, FME helps find the possibility of potential failure modes in a system that causes and the effects. So good job, everyone. Question 3. Which of the following are the best option to why a maintenance department would perform a skills assessment? Is it A, to scorecard against other departments? Is it B, to determine gaps and create action plans to improve? Is it C, to remove low-skilled technicians? Or D, corporate initiatives for the departments that are required to complete? We'll start the timer at 30 seconds and go. About 15 seconds left. Three, two, one, and we'll close it. What did you get for Owen, Joan?
And so this one, we're all on the same page here. We got 100% for B, to determine gaps and create action plans to improve.
Yeah. Okay. Well, very good, everyone. Yes, that is the ultimate answer. The other ones would. I'm not to say organizations haven't done these in the past, but certainly you understand that the best practices it's used to develop action plans on how to improve your employees. Very good. It was B. All right, 2 more left. Question 4. A team has been assembled to conduct a root cause analysis on a recent spike in the number of breakdowns. What tracking metric might be a leading indicator to first look at? Is it A, the overall equipment effectiveness, the OEE? Is it B, the mean time to repair? C, the mean time to failure? Or is it D, the cost of breakdown? We'll start timer at 30 seconds. All right. About 15 more seconds. And think about the CMRP, you would have around 82 seconds per question. So these are set up to about 45 characters in length to best demonstrate what you might see. All right, that's 30. We'll stop there. How do we do there, Joe?
Alrighty, so we got about 80% of people answering C, mean time to failure. We have a few that answered the overall equipment effectiveness, as well as cost of breakdowns.
Okay, good. And the answer is C. And the way to look at this answer is the key word here is leading indicator. So leading and lagging, OEE would be a leading indicator into the leading indicator would be the mean time to failure, where the lagging indicator would be the OEE. So that was the key there. Mean time to repair, they're asking the questions about why there's a number of breakdowns occurring, not how long these are to get fixed. And, D is just a distractor. Okay, very good. Last question. If a technician has a 35% productivity, meaning that in a 10-hour shift, how many hours of non-productive, non-value-added time did they occur? Was it 6.5 hours? Was it 55%? Was it 5.5 hours or 2.5 hours? So this would be one of the math questions. I'm going to start the timer now. This, you could also call this as a wrench time also. All right, good. About 10 more seconds. All right, let's close that one up. And how do we do, John?
Alrighty, so we had around 87% of our members said A, 6.5 hours. We had one that said 55%, another one that said 2.5 hours.
Good, okay. We'll just go straight to the answer on this one. It is A. And it is the difference between what productive time. So what it's meant to do is maybe possibly confuse those on what is productive time versus non-productive time, and then the difference between 35% and 65%. Equate that to hours, and you've got 6.5 hours. And B was meant to be again a bit of a distractor because it's asking for hours. All right, very good. Well, thanks for taking time to go through some of these questions. The other part I want to go into is, what to ask yourself. When you're taking this exam, why is this process important? And I mentioned it earlier that the CMRP or the SMRP, created these 5 pillars. And while there are tools that they have pulled in from different organizations, they feel that these are the best behaviors, best practices that demonstrate what they categorize somebody as a certified maintenance reliability professional. So as you're preparing and taking this exam, does your organization have the process? Is it working? A great way to learn and remember these concepts is, take what your current organization has and see how they stack up. Look at the metrics that you currently have out there, and are they leading or lagging indicators, and see what you find. And then also, if some of the organizations that are out there are following some of these processes that are great. Others, well, knowing is being armed with some of this information, and you can take that back to your organization, which certainly iterates why a CMRP can be beneficial to you and others. So envisioning the finish line. Planning out your regularly starting habits, is in the weeks or months ahead for the big day, because you can schedule it out, and if I remember correctly, you have 24 hours prior to the day of the test that if you feel you need more time, you could expand that further. Create a study schedule. Most of us out there are professionals. We've got families, but we have to make these obligations to do that studying on that. And creating that routine and that habit is one of the first tasks in ensuring that you're prepared and ready for the exam. This is something that you kind of reach out there, but share your goal of passing the CMRP with others. And I say that only in the matter that it adds that level of just excitement to wanting to go out there and pass that exam, because now you've put that information out there for others, that puts that level of anxiousness that you need to put that preparation time in to prepare and get ready. And because as you're sharing that, people want to be able to celebrate that success with you. And the last one is that, finding the time, support from your manager on this. See if the organizations can support studying on it. And, when I wrote this out there, I thought about when I was a maintenance supervisor working, because we had to rotate in on weekends. And other than getting things going and ensuring things were running, I had some availability that if I had been studying for the CMRP, I think I could have had a window there to do some of the study. Ask your manager if that's acceptable. But there's different ways you can do this. But the plan is like plan the ending out there. Okay. So how do you know when you're ready? Well, if you registered for the exam, you downloaded the Body of Knowledge. It's the 5th edition. There's free online recordings if you're a member, and of all the different pillars. They're certainly they're beneficial. But again, there's also training materials out there. There's some great books on maintenance reliability. I recommend you'd certainly have one on maintenance reliability and planning and scheduling, because there's a good breadth of knowledge that comes out of both these books examples and the number of questions that are on there pertaining to information. And then, just like getting ready for a sporting event, or you're training for an event, there's that dress rehearsal. So taking out there and taking practice tests and simulator tests certainly give you that barometer to see if that knowledge is up to caliber for taking that CMRP. And it certainly is a lot less expensive than having to come back 6 months later and repeat the exam. I tell those that use some of mine that if you're passing these questions, which are meant to be a little more difficult than the questions out there, in 80%, that's an indication that you're on track or you're ready to take such an exam. But be willing to devote 1 to 2 hours a day, 6 days a week, if not more, to studying and preparing for it. And I'm just going to leave you with a quote here, and it's from the Art of War. And I'm going to read it, then I'm going to translate it for you. If you know the enemy and know yourself, you need not fear the results of 100 battles. If you know yourself but not the enemy, for every victory gained, you will also suffer defeat. If you know neither the enemy or yourself, you will scramble in every battle. I like that quote because what it's saying is it's a metaphor that if the battle is the test, and if you understand the test and you understand yourself, it's inevitable. It's not a question of you're going to pass or not. It's that when you're going to pass. So it's a question about preparation. So I encourage you to use the resources that are out there, and you'll be successful. Just some last little tidbits is, identify the critical exam, registering for it. Candidates interested, they must fill out an application. There's an application fee, and if you're not able to pass on your first try, there is a 6-month window before you can take your next exam. Study the body of knowledge, and at the bottom it just kind of shows some of the different exam fees. But this is taken directly off the CMRP website. You can take a look at it for yourself. All right, so I went through it really quick. I mean, it's a 1 hour kind of fire hose approach to what is in CMRP and how to study for it. If you want to find out more information about myself and we can get out there, I currently got a paperback book that's on Amazon that includes more test questions and explanations, and Udemy's got some other questions that I've put together. And there's also, through this a coupon code TMC_50, you receive 50% off if you're interested in it. You contact me through Slack, and also you can find me on LinkedIn if you want it. But I want to thank you for taking the time, and if we got some questions, I'd be happy to answer them at this point. I'm going to stop sharing my screen.
I can go ahead and exit.
All right.
Perfect. Thank you so much, AW. We did have a few questions come in, but I did want to kind of repeat the fact that all of your resources are very helpful and helped me pass my CMRP exam. So I definitely encourage everyone here to take a look at his Udemy course, his book. I'm sure it'd be really helpful in preparing for the exam. But a question we got in from Felix is, and maybe you can answer this. Is there any recommended documentation to answer questions on the CMRP exam regarding lubrication and oil analysis? Yeah.
Well, I guess the way to look at this is a certified maintenance reliability professional. You don't need to know the technical portions of it. It's a lot of this, and we're looking at going into our next position, which a lot of time might be leadership. So think about this SMRP in that aspect of it, and that's how you want to prepare for it. Being able to speak to lubrication, that's great. Being able to understand or being able to teach it, you may not. I don't know if I'd go down that avenue. I don't. I'm not a lubrication expert or entomologist.
Another question was, a person said they took the CMRP exam but did not pass, so they instead took the CMRT test and passed. Question is why is there a 6-month wait to retake the test?
I can only give you theory. It's really because if you take it multiple times, you might be able to memorize it. Where you could be. I can only hypothesize that they're probably the same questions again, and they want to remove you from that, from the idea of memorization. They want you to be able to apply the knowledge.
Awesome. And then one more is, where can we find the links to your Udemy course and other things that were in that last slide? You can probably just provide this in the Slack group. I know this person is in the group, so we can, after this webinar, I can go ahead and send all of those links out as well.
Yes.
And then this one, I'm not sure if you know this, but how often is the CMRP exam conducted?
Well, it's how, can you read the question again? How often?
Yeah, how often is it conducted? So I'm assuming how many times is it, I guess, scheduled out for people to take the exam?
Well, I mean, the rules are every 6 months. I don't know if the question is pertaining to, are the questions updated on some frequency on that? I can tell you that it's the last 2 years it has been the same. And actually, I was asked to come on to SMRP and actually help with some of the test questions, but fortunately, I do have a conflict of interest, so I had to remove myself from that. So if that gives any indication, they're probably looking at some point in the near future of updating those kind of questions or information. I hope that answers the questions that they're asking.
Cool, thank you. And one more question. Raul says, I'm determined to take the CMRP in the coming 6 months. Do you think that 6 months time is sufficient?
Yes. Yeah. If you're able to have a plan and devote yourself to it, certainly. And, I'm going to make some assumptions here that a lot of these individuals that are on this have got some of the background. I know Joan I don't know if you did or not, but having that knowledge of on-site or experience just makes it that much easier to do it. If you don't, it certainly can make it a little bit difficult to go with it. But if you've got some experience in the CMRP or understanding the process and the knowledge is on it, 6 months is plenty of time. Yeah.
Exactly. I think that's all the questions. There's a few more typing, but I did want to note out that I think me personally, just like going through the resources I had and not having a maintenance background whatsoever, I think what you said earlier in your webinar is really understanding the structure of how the exam is kind of created, and that it really does go back to, how does SMRP want you to answer this question? It's not based off of your historical knowledge, but it's really like, what's the best practice? What is, ideal in the situation when questions are being presented to you? So I think you kind of hit it on the nail there. So Ahmed asked, he has less exposure to operations and the maintenance side. For a person that's like him, he's a consultant. How would you recommend to prepare for the CMRP exam?
Well, you certainly registering for it and then going over the training materials. And I'm a little biased on it, but the simulations and regurgitating the information and the questions, how to debunk a question out there. The questions aren't meant to trick you, but they do want to test your knowledge.
Totally agree with you there. Also on the point where you said that at most you'll be able to cancel out 2 of the options and you'll be able to kind of choose from the top 2 choices. I feel like I went and I discovered that a lot when I was taking the exam.
Yeah.
So I think there's no more questions. Okay, Nishan asked, besides reading recommended books and going through the mock test, is there anything else that you recommend? What's the typical preparation time required to do well on the test?
I want to be specific on it, but it depends on your own skill set on that. If you look at the handbook that comes out there, that was the first thing that I looked at. I took the questions from the handbook, and it kind of gave me a barometer of where I thought my knowledge was. And I think I got about 75% ready, and that's not without testing at all. And that kind of told me if I was ready or not. Certainly what I included to is understanding some of the test simulations on how you're scoring through those. I'm not just the only one that has something out there. There's multiples out there, and Udemy's got different versions of it that you can purchase. But I would use that as a testing point. In fact, when I kind of got into this position of test writing was I was taking a project management professional and Lean Six Sigma, and while there's a large breadth of knowledge that's out there for the CMRP, there's even more in the PMP, and I got used to it. And when I was looking for it, I saw that gap and realized that it helps me retain a lot. If during the training I talked about, the best answer is if you can teach it, you're demonstrating an understanding of it. So when I prepared like I had to teach it, and that's what helped me through it. Specific things on there, the MR maintenance reliability books out there, they're great. Understanding the standards that out there and the best practices, and the SMRP, if you sign up for them, they do have great webinars, but you do have to devote some time to it. And that's like the thing of any kind of exam you want to prepare for.
All right. It looks like those are all the questions. So that concludes our webinar. And if there's any other further questions that you have for our expert here, feel free to send him an email or a Slack. We're readily available to answer every questions that you have regarding the CMRP exam. But then I'll go ahead and close it off. The recording, again, will be provided as well as the slides with the questions included so that you all may kind of relook at this and study going forward. So I think that's the last words from me. Any last words from you, AW?
No, thanks for setting up, Joan. This was actually a lot of fun, and I hope everyone found some benefit in this. And again, reach out if you have questions.
Alrighty.
All right. Take care.
Thanks, everyone. Have a great day.